They threw me out like I was nothing. My own family. The people who were supposed to support me, believe in me, stand by me, they kicked me to the curb. I was 21 years old, homeless, with nothing but the clothes on my back. My father told me I was a disappointment. My mother cried but did nothing. My siblings pretended I didn't exist. And you know what? That was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because today, at 35 years old, I'm worth more than my entire family combined. I've built an empire they could never dream of. And the irony? They're coming crawling back, begging for my help. If you want to hear how I went from homeless to billionaire, how I turned my family's rejection into my greatest motivation, how I built a life they can only envy, smash that like button and subscribe. Because this is the ultimate revenge story. Let's begin. My name is James Mitchell, and I come from one of the most prominent families in Manhattan. The Mitchells. Old money. Real estate. Investments. We're talking generational wealth. My great-grandfather built an empire in the 1920s, and my family has been living off that success ever since. But I wasn't supposed to be successful. I was supposed to be a disappointment. And for a long time, I believed them. I grew up in a penthouse overlooking Central Park. Private schools. Expensive restaurants. Vacations in Europe. Everything money could buy. But there was one thing money couldn't buy: my father's respect. My father, Richard Mitchell, is a man of rigid expectations. He wanted his 3 children, my older brother Christopher, my older sister Victoria, and me, to follow a very specific path. Ivy League education. Wall Street job. Marry someone from an equally wealthy family. Produce heirs. Repeat. Christopher followed the path perfectly. He went to Harvard, became an investment banker, married a girl from a prominent family, and now he runs one of the largest hedge funds in the country. Victoria also followed the path. Yale, law degree, married to a senator, 2 perfect children. And then there was me. I was supposed to be the golden child. The youngest. The one with unlimited potential. But something was different about me. I didn't want Wall Street. I didn't want to manage other people's money. I wanted to create something. I wanted to build. When I was 18 years old, I became obsessed with technology. Specifically, artificial intelligence and machine learning. I started teaching myself to code. I spent hours in my room, learning programming languages, studying algorithms, dreaming about what AI could do for the world. My father hated it. "That's not a real career," he told me at dinner one night. "That's a hobby for people who don't have real responsibilities. You need to focus on your education, on preparing for the business world." But I couldn't stop. I was consumed by it. So when I got to college, Cornell, because my father insisted on an Ivy League school, I double-majored in computer science and business. I spent my nights coding, building projects, teaching myself everything I could about AI. My father was furious. "You're wasting your education," he said during my freshman year when he found out about my computer science major. "You're going to end up broke, coding for some tech startup. Is that really what you want? To throw away your family's legacy?" But I didn't care. I was 19 years old and I'd found my passion. I wasn't going to give it up. By my junior year of college, I'd co-founded a small AI startup with 2 other students. We were building machine learning algorithms for businesses. Nothing revolutionary, but it was ours. We were hungry. We were young. We believed in what we were doing. My father saw the news article about our startup in a business journal. He called me that night, and his voice was cold. "I'm cutting you off," he said. "Effective immediately. No more tuition payments. No more trust fund distributions. No more anything. You want to throw your life away on some computer company? Fine. Do it without my money." I was devastated. But I was also determined. "Okay," I said quietly. "I'll figure it out." "You won't last 6 months," my father said before hanging up. "You'll come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, and maybe, I'll consider taking you back into this family." He was wrong. I dropped out of Cornell in my senior year. My startup had gotten some traction, and we'd managed to raise a small seed round of funding from angel investors who believed in our vision. It wasn't much, about $500,000, but it was enough to keep us going. I moved out of the penthouse and into a tiny apartment in Brooklyn with 2 roommates. I was making barely minimum wage, working 18-hour days, barely sleeping. But I was free. For 3 years, I worked tirelessly on that startup. We built our product. We got users. We started generating revenue. And slowly, gradually, we started to grow. By the time I was 24 years old, we'd raised a Series A round of funding worth $10 million. By 26, Series B for $50 million. By 28, we'd gone public. Our IPO valued the company at $2 billion, and I owned 40% of it. At 28 years old, I was worth $800 million. My family didn't reach out. Not once. Not even when the IPO made headlines. Not even when Forbes listed me as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America. But that all changed when I was 31 years old. That's when my father called me for the first time in 7 years. "James," he said, his voice careful and measured. "It's your father. I think we should talk." Cliffhanger. I hadn't heard from my family in 7 years. They'd disowned me, rejected me, told me I was a failure. And now, suddenly, my father wanted to talk. I had no idea what was coming. But I was about to learn that rejection had taught me more than acceptance ever could have. I almost didn't answer the phone. I was in a board meeting when my assistant slipped me a note saying my father was on the line. I could have ignored it. I probably should have ignored it. But some part of me, some foolish, nostalgic part, wanted to hear what he had to say. I excused myself and took the call in my office. "Hello, Dad," I said, my voice neutral. "James, thank you for taking my call," he said. There was something in his tone I'd never heard before. Desperation, maybe. Humility. "What do you want?" I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. "I want to see you," he said. "I want to talk to you about what happened. About how I treated you." I felt a surge of anger. "You disowned me," I said coldly. "You told me I was a failure. You told me I'd never amount to anything. You cut me off financially and emotionally. And now, 7 years later, you want to talk." "Yes," my father said quietly. "I know I have no right to ask. But I'm asking anyway. Can we meet?" Something in me wanted to say no. To hang up and never speak to him again. But curiosity won out. I agreed to meet him for lunch the next day at a restaurant in Manhattan. When I arrived at the restaurant, my father was already there. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Worn down. He stood up when he saw me, and for a moment, I thought he might try to hug me. But he seemed to sense that I wouldn't welcome that, so he just extended his hand. I didn't shake it. We sat down in awkward silence. "You look well," my father finally said. "I am well," I replied. "I'm very well, actually. Forbes says I'm worth $1.2 billion now. The company is thriving. We just announced a partnership with Google. Everything is going exactly as I planned." My father winced at that. "I saw the Forbes article," he said. I'm very proud of what you've accomplished." "Are you?" I asked bitterly. "Because 7 years ago, you told me I would never amount to anything. You told me I was throwing my life away. You told me I should come crawling back to you begging for forgiveness. My father looked down at his plate. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "I was wrong about all of it. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about the path you needed to take. I was wrong about everything. Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "What changed?" My father took a deep breath. "Your brother," he said. "Christopher. He's in trouble. Serious trouble. His hedge fund has been under SEC investigation for the past year. They're alleging insider trading, market manipulation, fraud. The evidence is, it's bad, James. They're talking about criminal charges. Prison time." I felt a chill run down my spine. "And?" I asked, already knowing where this was going. "And he needs a lawyer," my father said. "A very good lawyer. The best lawyer money can buy. And money, well, we're about to have a lot less of it. The legal fees are going to be astronomical. And with the family's reputation on the line, we're hemorrhaging money. Clients are pulling out. Business partners are distancing themselves." He paused. "I came here to ask if you would help us," my father said. "If you would use your resources, your connections, to find the best defense team for Christopher. If you would help us weather this storm." I sat back in my chair, processing what I was hearing. My brother, the golden child, the one who'd followed the path perfectly, was about to go to prison. And my father was asking me, the failure, the disappointment, the one they'd disowned, to save them. The irony was almost too much to bear. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You kicked me out of the family 7 years ago. You told me I was a failure. You cut me off financially and emotionally. I built an empire without you. I became successful despite your rejection, not because of your support. And now that your golden boy is in trouble, you're coming to me asking for help." "Yes," my father said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm asking you to help your family." "They're not my family anymore," I said coldly. "You made that very clear when you disowned me." I stood up from the table. "But I will tell you what I'll do," I continued. "I'll have my legal team look into Christopher's case. Not for you. Not for the family. But because somewhere deep down, I still care about my brother, even though he never stood up for me. I'll help him find the best defense possible. But I won't be paying for it. He will. Out of whatever money he has left after the SEC is done with him." My father looked up at me, hope in his eyes. "Thank you," he said. "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Because this is going to cost him everything. And maybe, just maybe, he'll learn what I learned at 21. That you have to build your own path. That you can't rely on anyone but yourself. That rejection can be a gift if you're willing to see it that way." I left him sitting at the table, his lunch untouched. My father came to me asking for help. But helping my family meant facing the pain of my own rejection all over again. And I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a much larger reckoning that would force me to confront everything I'd been running from. I kept my promise. I had my legal team investigate Christopher's case. What we found was worse than I'd expected. Christopher hadn't just committed insider trading. He'd orchestrated an entire scheme involving false trading records, bribed regulators, and stolen client funds. The amount of money involved was in the hundreds of millions. He wasn't just going to prison. He was going to prison for a very long time. When I told him the truth, he broke down. "I didn't have a choice," he said when I met with him privately. "Dad put so much pressure on me to perform, to make more money, to expand the fund. When the market turned, when our returns started declining, he told me I had to find a way to maintain our reputation. He told me I had to do whatever it took." "So you committed fraud?" I asked. "I did what I thought I had to do to survive," Christopher said bitterly. "Just like you did, except you went the honest route and I didn't." For the first time, I felt something other than anger toward my brother. I felt pity. Christopher ended up taking a plea deal. He got 12 years in federal prison. He's currently serving his sentence at a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania. But the damage didn't stop with Christopher. The SEC investigation expanded to include my father. It turned out that my father had known about Christopher's fraud. More than that, he'd encouraged it. He'd specifically told Christopher to do whatever it took to maintain the family's reputation and wealth. My father ended up facing charges too. Securities fraud, conspiracy, money laundering. He got 8 years. Victoria, my sister, managed to distance herself from the scandal. As a lawyer married to a senator, she had enough credibility to claim she knew nothing. But her marriage fell apart anyway. Her husband couldn't survive the political fallout of being associated with the Mitchell family scandal. And my mother, she had a complete breakdown. She's currently living in a psychiatric facility, medicated and struggling to process the collapse of her entire world. Within 6 months, the Mitchell family empire had crumbled. The family business, the real estate and investment company that had generated wealth for 4 generations, was liquidated to pay legal fees and settlements. The penthouse was sold. The vacation homes were seized. The trust funds were depleted. The family that had once been worth an estimated $2 billion was now worth essentially nothing. And I watched it all happen from a distance, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. One day, my sister Victoria called me. "James, I know you probably don't want to talk to me," she said. "But I needed to apologize. I needed to tell you that you were right. You were right to leave. You were right to build your own path. And I was wrong to judge you for it." I didn't respond right away. "I also wanted to tell you that I'm getting divorced," she continued. "My husband is leaving me. My children don't understand what's happening. And I'm about to lose my house because I can't afford the mortgage anymore. I'm going to have to find a new job, probably at a smaller firm that will actually hire me after this scandal." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "Are you?" Victoria asked. "Because part of me thinks you're probably enjoying this. Watching us suffer the way you suffered. Watching us experience consequences for the first time in our lives." She wasn't wrong. "Part of me is," I admitted. "But another part of me is genuinely sorry. Because no matter what happened between us, you're still my sister. And seeing our family destroyed, it's not as satisfying as I thought it would be." "That means something," Victoria said quietly. "That you still care enough to be sorry." We talked for another hour. Not reconnecting, exactly, but starting to understand each other in a new way. My family had fallen. They'd been destroyed by their own greed and corruption. And I had the power to help them or to watch them suffer. But helping them meant forgiving the rejection that had shaped my entire adult life. And I wasn't sure I was ready to do that. 2 years after Christopher went to prison, I got a letter. It was from my father. He was writing from a federal prison camp in West Virginia, where he was serving his sentence. "James, I know I have no right to write this letter. I know that everything I'm about to say will probably sound hollow and meaningless. But I need to try anyway. I've spent the last 2 years in prison thinking about my life, about the choices I made, about the way I treated you. I came to a realization that I should have come to years ago. I was a coward. I was terrified of you because you represented everything I wasn't brave enough to be. You had the courage to pursue your own path. You had the vision to see possibilities that I couldn't see. And instead of celebrating that, instead of supporting you, I tried to destroy it. I tried to force you into a mold that was meant for someone else. Your rejection of my expectations wasn't a failure. It was the bravest thing you've ever done. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to care about me or to help me when I get out of prison. But I wanted you to know that I recognize now what I couldn't see then, that you were always the strongest one among us. That you always saw the truth, even when the rest of us were living in comfortable lies. I'm proud of you, James. I'm sorry I didn't say that when it mattered. But I'm saying it now. Your father. I read that letter a dozen times. And each time I read it, I felt something shift inside me. Anger. Sadness. Forgiveness. All of it mixed together in a confusing, painful, healing cocktail. A week later, I got a call from Victoria. "James, I have a business proposition for you," she said without preamble. "Okay," I said cautiously. "What is it?" "I want to start a non-profit," she explained. "It's called Second Chances. The mission is to help people who've been rejected by their families, who've been kicked out or disowned, to rebuild their lives. We provide financial assistance, mentorship, career coaching, legal support, everything we wish we'd had when our world fell apart." "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Because you're the living embodiment of what we're trying to do," Victoria said. "You were rejected. You were disowned. And you built an empire anyway. I want you to be the face of this organization. I want you to help other people who are where you were." I was silent for a long moment. "I'll do it," I said finally. "But on one condition." "What?" Victoria asked. "You don't ask me to forgive Dad. You don't ask me to help him when he gets out of prison. You don't ask me to rebuild the family. This is about helping strangers, not rebuilding our family." "Agreed," Victoria said. We spent the next 6 months building the Second Chances Foundation. We raised money. We hired staff. We started taking applications from people who needed help. And it was meaningful work. Real work. The kind of work that made me feel like I was doing something that actually mattered. But then something unexpected happened. We received an application from a 21-year-old kid from Connecticut whose parents had disowned him when he came out as gay. He was homeless. He was working at a coffee shop for minimum wage. He had dreams of starting a tech company. Reading his story, I saw myself. The same fear. The same determination. The same certainty that he could build something if he just got a chance. I approved his application personally. I connected him with mentors from my company. I helped him get accepted into a startup accelerator program. And watching him succeed, watching him build something real, I realized something important. Rejection doesn't have to define you. It can liberate you. It can show you who you really are when you strip away all the expectations and the pressure and the need for approval. My family's rejection had been the greatest gift they could have given me. And now I could pass that gift on to others. I was helping others heal from rejection. But I still hadn't fully healed myself. My father was about to be released from prison. And I was about to face the ultimate test. Could I forgive him? Should I? My father was released from federal prison on a Tuesday in November. He'd served 6 years of his 8-year sentence and had been granted early release for good behavior. When he walked out of that prison, he was 72 years old. He looked like a broken man. I was waiting for him outside the gates. He didn't expect it. He hadn't asked me to be there. But I came anyway. For reasons I still don't fully understand. When he saw me, he stopped walking. For a moment, I thought he might break down right there on the prison grounds. "James," he said, his voice shaking. "You came." "Yeah," I said simply. "I came." "Why?" he asked. "Because you're still my father," I said. "Even though you didn't act like it for a very long time." I drove him to a small house in New Jersey that Victoria had helped him secure. The Second Chances Foundation had a program for formerly incarcerated individuals, and my father qualified. He had nowhere else to go. No one else who would help him. We didn't talk much on the drive. There was too much history between us. Too much pain. When we got to the house, I helped him get settled. The place was modest but clean, furnished with basic necessities. There was food in the refrigerator that Victoria had arranged for. "How long are you planning to stay?" my father asked, probably terrified that I would leave immediately. "I'm not leaving right now," I said. "Let's talk." We sat in the living room, and for the first time in nearly 15 years, we actually talked. My father told me about his time in prison, about the other men he met there, about the therapy sessions he participated in, about the realization that hit him one day that he had spent his entire life building something external, wealth, status, reputation, instead of building something internal, character, wisdom, genuine human connection. "I destroyed my family," he said quietly. "I pushed my oldest son into committing crimes. I created an environment of such pressure and expectation that he couldn't breathe. And you? I rejected the one person among my children who actually had the courage to think for himself." "Yes," I said. "You did all of that." "I can't undo it," my father said. "I can't give Christopher back the years he'll spend in prison. I can't restore Victoria's marriage. I can't unbreak your mother's mind. All I can do is acknowledge it and try to be better." "And that's it?" I asked. "You acknowledge it and try to be better, and everything is forgiven?" "No," my father said. "Forgiveness isn't something I'm owed. It's something I have to earn, if I can earn it at all." We talked for 6 more hours that day. About my childhood, about the pressure he'd put on us, about his own father and the pressure that had been put on him, about generational trauma and how it gets passed down and perpetuated until someone has the courage to break the cycle. By the time I left that evening, I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I was willing to try. Over the next few months, I saw my father regularly. We had Sunday dinners. We went to therapy together. And slowly, gradually, I started to understand him not as the monster I'd made him out to be in my mind, but as a flawed human being who had done his best with the tools he had, and who had made terrible mistakes as a result. One day, about 6 months after his release, my father asked if I would help him get a job. "You don't have to," he said. "I know you owe me nothing. But I'm 72 years old and I need to contribute to society. I can't just sit around doing nothing." So I helped him. I got him a job as a consultant at my company. Not in a powerful position, something modest, something appropriate for someone with his background and his limitations. He was a good consultant. He was wise. He understood business. And he was humble in a way I'd never seen before. One day, in a meeting with my executive team, my father made a suggestion that led to a pivot in our product strategy. The suggestion was brilliant. It was the kind of insight that could add millions to our bottom line. One of my executives said, "That's a great idea. Where did that come from?" My father looked at me across the table. "From a lifetime of mistakes," he said simply, "and finally having the wisdom to learn from them." I was starting to reconcile with my father. We were building something new. But I still had to face the hardest question. Did I want to rebuild the family? Or was it better to leave the past in the past and move forward separately? 5 years after my father's release from prison, the entire family came together for the first time since the scandal. It wasn't planned. It wasn't orchestrated. It just happened naturally over time. Christopher had been released from prison after serving 10 years of his 12-year sentence. He was struggling. He had a criminal record. No one wanted to hire him. He was living in a halfway house, working minimum wage jobs, trying to rebuild his life from nothing. I offered him the same opportunity I'd offered my father, a job at my company. He accepted. Victoria had rebuilt her law practice. She was making good money again, though she would never have the wealth she'd had before. She was happily single. She was thriving. My mother had stabilized. She was no longer in a psychiatric facility. She was living independently, seeing a therapist regularly, on medication that actually worked for her. One Sunday, we all had dinner together at my penthouse. The same penthouse my father had once disowned me from. It was strange. It was awkward. There were long silences and moments of tension. But there was also genuine connection. Real conversation. Actual love. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. "I'm sorry," she said simply, "for not standing up for you. For letting your father control everything. For being weak when you needed me to be strong." I hugged her. And for the first time in decades, she hugged me back without reservation. Later, my father asked if we could talk privately. "I've been thinking about something," he said. "About what you said years ago, that rejection was a gift. And I've realized something. The rejection you experienced, the pain you went through, made you stronger. But it also made you wiser. And I believe your success wasn't just despite the rejection, it was partially because of it." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying that I've thought about all the ways I could apologize," my father said. "All the ways I could try to make things right. But the truth is, I can't. I can't give you back those 7 years of estrangement. I can't undo the pain. So instead of trying to apologize for the past, I want to spend the rest of my life earning your respect. Not as your father demanding deference, but as a human being demonstrating character." I nodded slowly. "That's all I've ever wanted," I said. "Not an apology. Just proof that you've changed. That you understand what you did was wrong. And that you're genuinely trying to be better." "I am," my father said. "Every single day, I'm trying. Today, I'm 35 years old. I'm worth $2.3 billion. My company is worth $15 billion. We're revolutionizing the AI industry and changing how businesses operate across the globe. But that's not what I'm most proud of. I'm most proud of the Second Chances Foundation. In the 5 years since we started it, we've helped over 10,000 people who've been rejected by their families. We've provided mentorship, financial support, career guidance, and most importantly, validation that their rejection doesn't define their worth. Many of those people have gone on to build successful lives. Some have even started their own companies. One of them has become a billionaire herself. I'm also proud of my relationship with my family. We're not perfect. We have disagreements. We still have tensions and unresolved issues. But we're trying. We're genuinely trying to be better to each other. My father works at my company. He's a consultant and an advisor. He's become something of a mentor figure to our younger employees. People respect him not because of what he did in the past, but because of who he is now. Christopher has built a small software company. It's not as successful as mine, but it's his. And he did it without cutting corners, without committing fraud, without compromising his integrity. He's sober. He's in therapy. He's genuinely healing. Victoria is running the Second Chances Foundation full-time now. She's become a powerful advocate for people who've been rejected by their families. She's built a movement. And my mother, she's become a grandmother. Christopher has 2 kids. They call me Uncle James. They don't understand the family drama. They just know that Uncle James is successful and kind and that Grandma loves them very much. People often ask me, "What's the secret to your success? How did you become a billionaire?" And the answer is simple. I was rejected. I was disowned. I was told I would never amount to anything. And that rejection was my greatest teacher. It taught me that I don't need anyone's approval to be successful. That I don't need validation from my parents to know my own worth. That I don't need to follow the path others have laid out for me to live a meaningful life. The rejection hurt. God, it hurt. I spent years angry, bitter, determined to prove them wrong. But eventually, I realized that proving them wrong wasn't the goal. The goal was proving myself right. The goal was building a life that felt authentic and meaningful, regardless of whether my family ever acknowledged it. And when I finally accepted that, when I finally let go of the need for their approval, that's when real success came. Today, I have more money than I could ever spend. But more important than money, I have peace. I have integrity. I have a family that's learning to love each other authentically instead of through obligation. To anyone out there who's been rejected, your rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of the limited vision of the people who rejected you. Build your own path. Trust yourself. And know that sometimes, the greatest gift a parent can give you is the motivation to prove that you don't need them. I never thought I'd forgive my family. But I did. Not because they deserved it, but because I deserved the freedom that forgiveness brings. And now, my greatest joy is seeing my family choose to be better. Not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the real success story. This is my story. From rejection to billions. From homeless to billionaire. From hating my family to understanding them. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this: your past doesn't define your future. Your family's rejection of you doesn't determine your value. And success isn't about proving them wrong, it's about proving yourself right. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own relationships with family, about rejection and resilience, leave a comment and tell me, what rejection in your life became your greatest motivation? And don't forget to subscribe to Buried Secrets for more stories about overcoming adversity, family drama, and the incredible human capacity for redemption and growth. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. I'm James Mitchell. And this is how I became more successful than my entire family combined, not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right.